Oh,
When I grab one, these things can move, right?
That's great. Good morning. This is the I guess the first inaugural meeting of the current fiscal year subcommittee of the Audit Committee. It's a special meeting because every meeting that I think this committee is going to have is going to be special because we're not an entity that's filed a calendar a year in advance, I guess, with the town. But I guess the first order of business is a nomination and election of the subcommittee chair. Are there any nominations for the subcommittee chair?
I will nominate you, Bill.
I nominate Bill.
Okay. And I guess before...
I better take made the motion?
I did.
Yeah. And I think, and I appreciate that. I welcome the confidence of Janet and Tony here. I think it would be helpful just, and I think we're all on the same page, but in terms of, I think the chair will help in setting and coordinating meetings. I anticipate, and if anyone has any objections, let me know. I would imagine that the chair will be sort of the key liaison with both the town and the audit firm or firms, because they're going to need somebody on the subcommittee to call, right? So something comes up. I would envision that the chair would sit from time to time with people like Anne, or sit in on some of these meetings, and obviously then can report back to the subcommittee. And I think it's also important to note, I think we can handle some ministerial things, but at the end of the day, this subcommittee is making recommendations to the audit committee, right? So major decisions are really not made here. We'll bring them forward to the audit committee. And depending upon the topic, some of those may ultimately have to go to things like either the selectmen or others when it comes to things like engagement letters. So, okay, yeah. Sounds like we're all on the same page then. Okay. All right, well, thank you. Moving on to item 2, nomination and election of a subcommittee secretary. And I guess before we get there, I guess my feeling is we certainly should have minutes. Whether we have to have a full-blown secretary, I think minute taking is both appropriate and required. But whether we call it a secretary or not, but certainly we need to have, I think, a record of our meetings. So with that, I'm going to nominate Janet as sort of our minute taker, I guess, if you want to call it that, or secretary. Any seconds?
I second.
Motion for Janet to be secretary, minute taker. All in favor? Okay.
Quick question. Do these minutes get posted the way that the regular audit committee? So I'll have to talk to Mary because I'm not sure that whole process is.
Yeah, or Tucker, Mary or Tucker, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, both have to be done, I believe, within 24, 48 hours, but they can confirm what it is. And then the minutes, you bring the draft at the next meeting.
Okay. To be approved.
Yeah. And I'm certainly more than happy to help out on some of this. I just kind of went through this process, sending in the agenda and the whole bit.
Okay.
And who do you send it to? And which mailbox,
sort of,
which IT mailbox does it go to, et cetera. Okay. And then the third point, which is discussion of required next steps in furtherance of the internal audit project, including timing. And I think, in my view, in other words, what really needs to be done to get the ball rolling and for these internal audit project to get some traction, because I know the town has been looking at this for some time. I wasn't part of the original pitches from the two firms, but I think, the focus of this committee will be to help move that process along and get it going. So I just kind of looked at a few buckets, and people can weigh in, and maybe there are other things, but in terms of near-term things that we have to kind of talk about is to finalize the MSA. We haven't executed MSA with CLA, but not with CohnReznick. And just to be clear, as I'm sure you folks know, an MSA really doesn't get it. It's more of a commercial high-level discussion. It doesn't really get into the engagement, right? So then you'll schedule it, but we do need to get the CohnReznick finalized. So I don't know if and maybe there's somebody I could talk to just to see where we are, you know, on that in terms of that last point that we think is open.
Sure, it's really through our attorney.
Okay.
So we'll get the agreement of where it's standing right now.
The black line.
And yeah, and where he is, and then you can put you in contact.
Okay. Okay. The second kind of bucket I thought was sort of how does this committee help identify, narrow down the project focus? And it's interesting. I know over the years, the audit committee has had some internal audit projects. I know they did, I think the parking commission one year, and a few others. I was starting to try to go back through some of the really old minutes to see what I could find. I have asked Anne, said whatever she has, she's scanning reports and going to get.
Because you must have a copy of all the internal audit reports that were done in the past, right?
Yeah.
I know, because I think there was several projects, right? I know when I talked to previous audit committee members, they said that there was one on the taxes, there was one on the I think maybe the movie theater procurement side of things, or maybe they just talked about that. I don't know. Did they ever do one like that?
Recent. We didn't do one on that. We did one on leaf mulch.
The leaf mulch, yeah,
that's
yeah.
a recent one.
There was a tax collections, and what was?
So they're at least four plus years old. So
yeah,
okay. Yeah, that was like last year, the year before.
And student activity funds, was that ever done?
That's prior to me. So that activity funds, I don't know, but I'll look through all the.
Yeah, okay, and parking. I think there was one.
The
parking,
parking
right?
commission, yeah.
Yeah, and IT security. I'm just going by the notes that I got from
benefit of
of the previous committee. At IT security, did we ever do that one?
Not under me, but we could have done. That's a
okay. Yeah.
Would
big update to
but we didn't do an outside internal. No, that's
did Bill Perrette was sort of the chairman for the longest time, right?
Yeah.
So
since the beginning, actually.
So is he someone? I know you said you.
I did talk to him, and I also talked to Chuck, and actually Chuck had prepared. I think they showed it at one of the previous meetings, but that's where I got this thing, and it's list, but it just says focus. So I'm not sure if that's what they actually did, or that was what they thought they should do. Okay, that'd be great.
Because I think so that's actually very helpful. I think in talking to you folks and the other audit committee members, I think there's a sense of why don't we just attack sort of the end-to-end process on procure to pay, right? Including any capital spending. And, that really could be from an end-to-end standpoint, it could be policies and procedures. Are they all documented? If not, can this firm help document and write them up? Do we have the right controls in place? If not, maybe we have good controls, but they're not documented, right? Maybe we've got good policies, but nothing's documented. And when I talk about procure to pay, I include things like P-cards, right? Maybe we get into things and we had a quick discussion with Ann about this. I don't think there's like a sense of like a master vendor list, but levels of authority on spend. So it's on one hand, if you say, procure to pay, and if you also include capital, it sounds simple, but it really is. That's other than
broad.
It's your broad spend, except for benefits related matters, wages, pension,
compensation.
401k.
Right, compensation is the biggest expense, right?
Yes.
And benefits.
On both sides.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's that, but I know I'd be interested to see what the controls are for the capital projects, where they seal bids, how the seal bids get opened, who's in charge of that on each project.
Yep, it's decentralized, just for there isn't a centralized.
So it goes by the department.
Yeah, I've been looking at that for about 6 months or so. We've canvassed area towns to get their purchasing policies, because I do want to change our purchasing policy. So we have about 5 at this stage, I think we reached out to, but everything is decentralized. that would be very helpful. When
Yes.
you do.
Okay.
Yeah, because we want to change it up. And
Well, and you want to make sure your internal controls are there and they're being followed. Like that's
right.
That's,
Right. We could be doing
that's
everything
safety
great, but
check.
maybe it's not documented, or maybe we've got everything beautifully written, but we're not following it. Right. Or somewhere in between. And I know one of the firms actually was very explicit saying we can help enhance, we can help document stuff.
I think that was called Resnick. Right?
CLA.
CLA, I think it was CLA.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
a big, that would be a
Big
help
help.
for us in finance.
Yeah.
With documentation and help us with those policies.
And do you have like a policies and procedures manual, whether it's electronic or paper?
We have a few. They're older that we're updating, but we can definitely get them out. So during our audit process, our regular audit process, we have what's the control that document we do.
Well, it's like the narrative.
The narratives. We do the
Okay.
narrative of how we do things on it. And that gets fine-tuned every year, but to have a company come in and just write at the
Right.
desk would be great.
Right. And those are always hard to keep fresh and
That would be great.
and comprehensive. And I mean, at the end of the day, you know, the town should come out of this in a better place. And to the extent that the project will ultimately help people like you and the town and the taxpayers.
Give value. Yeah.
It's all
Definitely.
it's all good. And you know, I think both firms kind of pitched going in, oh, first we need to go in and spend 15 or 20,000 doing a risk assessment, and then we'll kind of tell you what we need to do.
Right.
If we go big with this sort of end-to-end procure to pay, including capital, they'll still probably have to come in and get the lay of the land, but I don't know if we want to have them come in and feel like they got to spend the first 15,000 on doing an overall risk assessment, unless the committee feels that's important.
No, I think, I mean, I'd rather see it was targeted, and then they'd have to get their, you know, they'd have to review that part of it to be able to make some recommendations.
I agree.
I think there would be some sub-projects that would come out. If we're really talking about a comprehensive end-to-end, to your point, there might be a subset on capital, you know, how does that whole process work?
And really, because the town and the Board of Ed kind of work independently in that manner, whether we do both, whether we start with one, you know.
I know, and shame on me, I inadvertently left Sean off this, you know, and I was glad to see, going back and looking at the RFPs, they were for both the town and the schools.
And the schools, yeah.
And I don't know, do you recall like how involved, like was Brian and Sean when the whole RFP thing was being kicked around early in the year, were they all part of that discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
this is
they
not.
sat in on those.
Yeah.
Interviews.
Okay, good.
Sean towards the end couldn't because of different reasons, but he went through all the meetings and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then that would be, it'd be great. And if we could actually kind of do it all, but that's a big project.
It's a big project.
It's a big project.
We've changed a lot of systems. So to have that documented as well as
Yeah.
going in and make sure it's all covered.
Right. Because I know, you know, there's the Munis system, right?
Yeah.
And I know there are, and I remember the same thing with SAP, like you find out you're paying for these SAP modules. Oh, I can do this. I've heard good chance there's an opportunity that the town can avail itself of some additional Munis
Yes.
work.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And so to the extent that, one of the things I'd like, it would be great if this project could come out with some efficiencies too.
Yeah. Where you're not creating a separate Excel worksheet or something.
That's what I'm.
Instead of using.
Exactly, get rid of the Excels and
Yeah.
get it into a system because of.
Where the data just
continuity.
flows.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're not.
And everyone can follow it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right. Okay.
That's great.
All right.
As we look at best practices of other towns, do we have any type of idea of what they're doing?
Not in a massive, so if something's coming up that I'm looking at, we shoot an email out to our area CFOs going, how do you do this? What do you do with this? And get that feedback to try and get changes. Or if we've gone to a new permitting system, we've gone to a new park and rec system, we're bringing in a new contract system. It's then parking is bringing in a new system. So it's reaching out to say, does it feed with Munis? Because we don't want silos, because then you go back to the Excel spreadsheet. So that's how we use our area. And then when we go to conferences, we talk to upstate and other areas about what they do in their processes. So we do keep in contact a lot and trying to change it.
So would we know what they're doing as far as internal control projects?
No, I wouldn't know that offhand, other than Diane just, what you said, Diane's been researching.
Right.
So she found Greenwich had done some in 21 and 22, that was it?
Right, I actually put together an audit, internal audit
They did a 5-year plan of what they wanted to do over those 5 years. And then did various different areas of it. So we'll get that listing to you.
Okay.
So that you can take a look at what they went through and see if that's something you're interested in.
Do they have an internal audit function embedded in the staff, or?
It's on their website. You could go.
Okay.
I found it.
But did you notice in the website that they have an employee that did it?
I think so.
It was an outside.
It was an outside.
Well,
Huh?
they used
Oh,
CLA.
actually, they use CLA, right,
Oh,
when I was
okay.
looking at it, reading it,
CLA
Okay.
used to have a hired person,
Westport used to as
Westport,
well.
but now they
Okay.
did hire, I was looking at theirs,
Okay.
they have a full-time person. It's an internal auditor, but that person I don't believe, and I could check with Gary Conrad. This used to be our city clerk here.
Okay.
They have somebody hired and that person's coordinating their internal audits.
It's kind of like what you
Like
would be doing,
you
because they don't
would,
have an
yeah.
audit committee.
I don't think
Right.
they really,
Mhm.
Okay.
I think it would be worthwhile also, before we get this too nailed down, is to speak to CLA and get their, I mean, they've done this a zillion times to make sure we're kind of on the right track here.
And they're well versed with
Yeah.
Connecticut towns.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
And I mean, and do you say CLA because we at least have an MSA with them, or should we also throw?
Well, I'm thinking,
in the mix?
Well, CLA, because we already have a
Okay.
master service agreement, plus, and I, correct me if I'm wrong, but my feeling when we interviewed them is they were more kind of this kind of thing, and Cone Resnick was more construction. They did a lot more work on sort of capital.
Going off capital.
Yeah,
Yeah, I,
but I could be wrong.
there was, when we did the interview, there was it a gentleman that did who does Westport? Was it Westport?
I don't know, was it CLA?
What firm?
I don't remember offhand.
I don't know. I think there was a gentleman that was speaking about capital projects.
Mhm.
It was very interesting what they
And
said.
just even, I remember reading their proposal, and it seemed to be more sort of focused in that
Right.
direction.
I would be, since I didn't join the audit committee till after the fact, I would welcome the opportunity to, have a follow up with CLA. I mean, I know ultimately we'll have to have multiple probably,
Right,
but yeah,
to come up with.
but I agree. I think that'd be great.
Take those meetings.
Yeah, I think we did. I think we did.
Take those meetings.
Yeah, we did.
actually. Let me find out.
I think we did.
Yeah.
Did we take them?
And do you have copies of their original proposal?
I have
Yeah.
the original proposals. I think they brought some.
But it was really
in-person.
a lot, the in-person stuff was really a summary of what was in the
Okay.
proposal. I don't remember there being a lot of new stuff in those things, and I have copies if
Okay.
you want.
But Jenny, what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like it would be beneficial if the initial feeling is maybe we go this sort of spend, procure to pay, include capital. It sounds like what I'm hearing from you is it would be good to kind of have that discussion with CLA and get their thoughts.
At an earlier stage, and
yeah.
it's not that that's what they're saying is going to determine what
Yeah,
we
they
do,
might-
but
Sure, I think
it
that's a
might
good
well have
idea.
more
You
information.
agree?
on that.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we should try to do that. And I guess it would have to actually be a meeting. Okay. Yeah, I think that would be very helpful.
That's a good point of, keeping this all transparent and all the rest of it, which I totally support. But can one of us speak to CLA without it being a formal meeting? Not
Yes,
three of us,
yes.
but one of us
Yes.
could.
Yes.
So that's
Just don't email what you're
No,
finding.
right,
Don't
right,
email
right,
us
right,
from
right,
you.
right.
Yeah.
But that may be the way to do this.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm happy to do it, or you could do it, or you can do it, whoever.
Probably makes sense
Okay.
for you to do it.
Okay. Why don't I think about that, and then yeah, I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
But what?
Just main focus.
Why don't I plan on doing that, and maybe I'll do it with Anne,
Okay.
right? And Sean as well, and then I think we can make a determination. Hey, maybe they should come back and talk to all three of us more
Okay.
formally.
Right.
How about that?
Yeah, that sounds
All
good.
right. So that's what we'll do. Okay. And until you get that, then you can't even get to the engagement letter phase, right? Until you've kind of got that done. And I know, is it the selectmen that sign off on the engagement letter?
Or is it the town council?
Council, right?
You know what, it's different with this because on the master service agreement, the first selectman
Signed
it.
it.
The town council doesn't do that, they handle the external.
Oh, okay,
Audit, not the
okay.
internal,
So
which
it's
was,
the,
I didn't know that back, but,
Okay.
Okay,
she would do the engagement letter too.
okay.
okay. Yeah, I don't know if what, if anything, we have to do with respect to, you know, socializing all this or liaising on the school side, you know, in terms of making sure that hasn't fallen off their radar, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they will get copies of minutes of this meeting, presumably, right?
And I can make them aware.
Okay.
Get a meeting, you know, and then I'll just make sure going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, making
Okay.
sure they're here too.
Okay. All right. So I think, and then I think, anything more on sort of item 3? We talked about some of the buckets here, I guess, which was MSA, identifying, narrowing down the project focus. You know, the engagement letter is down the road. I think we agreed it made sense. I'll do a first call. And actually, the fact that I didn't meet them in person will be a good excuse for me to talk to them anyway. But any other thoughts on, you know, things that we need to be mindful of? And if not, we can certainly, you know, just send me an email or call me if there are other things that people think of. I would like to, well, anything for 3, or can we move on to 4? If there's any other business, and I kind of just said 1, but
In terms of timing, just before we leave the timing piece, what makes, I mean, we're coming up to sort of crunch time for you guys.
Yeah.
What makes the most sense for you? Like, because we're not trying to like totally ruin your.
I think, well, certainly try and get the current audit.
Yes.
Get that out of the way.
Yeah. So that's by end of December, we're done with that, right?
Even in December. Then after that, it's budget season, but it's a little bit more bearable for us. I have a budget manager. So yeah, that's an easier time for us to gather documents, whatever it is that you need or they need.
Okay.
So beginning
January.
Of the year,
yeah. Okay. Which probably by the time we do all of this, it's going to be close.
That's true too.
Close to January.
Yeah. Okay. But I think to the, you know, some of the advanced lead work can be certainly.
We could have it all ready to go.
Yeah. And and again, I'm happy to kind of be like the eyes and ears of the subcommittee, and report back to you guys. I at the end of the day, I kind of view it as like we need to have somebody who's sort of on a real time, kind of up to speed on where are we on this process. So that's good. Okay, so thank you for mentioning that. And I guess you kind of touched on, I guess, calendars. I know there's a full audit committee meeting on November 14th. I guess we can take it under advisement if, well, maybe we will have a report out, a verbal report out to them at a minimum of what we've talked about. Maybe we'll have some resolution on the Cohen-Resnick MSA at that point too. So.
Yeah, and it might be I don't know whether it's too soon, but that might be a time to talk about what we've just talked about, that, you know, here's where our initial thinking is to go forward on this project as opposed to everything.
I agree. Okay. So I think then in terms of just open items or sort of follow-ups, I will, and I guess I'd coordinate it with Ian, reach out to and have a discussion with the right person or people at CLI, right? And I know you're working on trying to chase, you know, scan any of the old projects, and you'll make those available to us. And I think you were just going to kind of remind Sean and the school finance staff that, yeah, we're starting to gear up on this, at least give them a heads up on this front. And then I think after the fact, I'll probably just want to check with you all on calendars. Like I can do that, you know, offline, I guess. If there's any other further business or questions or comments? Okay, then I guess I call this meeting to close. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
I'll
take a
move
motion.
to, I'll move to adjourn.
adjourn.
Second is,
Thank you.